So what are the laws that Trump could change? So first of all, he can only change federal laws. We have California, we're all very fortunate to live here in California. California has a lot of laws in place that benefit everyone who lives in California, including immigrants, including undocumented immigrants, right? So the state laws include Department of Motor Vehicles, right? I think everyone here probably knows about AB 60, the driver's license legislation, right? That everyone is allowed to apply for a driver's license. Of course, you have to take the test and pass the test, but a social security number, legal immigration status is no longer a requirement in the state of California to get a driver's license. So that's not going to change. Oh, Trump can't change that. That would have to be changed by the California state legislature, right? You know, it's called AB 60. AB is Assembly bill, right? It's passed by it was introduced in the California State Assembly, debated in the Assembly and the Senate, and signed by the governor. So that's California legislation. A lot of people are concerned, if I have an AB 60 driver's license, will that information be shared with ICE, right? That's a question we've been hearing a lot in the past couple of weeks. What we know is that DMV will share specific information with ICE if they ask for information about a specific individual. So if ICE were to call up the DMV and say, hey, we're looking for Cheryl Munoz Bergman, do you have any information on her in your database? They will look up Cheryl Munoz Bergman in their database, and when they find me, they'll say, yes, she's right here at 2600 Middlefield Road in Redwood City. Here's her photograph. This is what we have on file. But they're not turning over wholesale records. They're not turning over the hundreds of thousands of people in their database. So why would ICE ask them for a specific individual? Well, it's because either that person has an order of removal or that person has some kind of a criminal issue and has been turned over to ICE, or their information has been turned over to ICE, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Police, and they're looking for more information. So that's one of the questions that we hear a lot. But getting back to our laws, the other laws that are governed and set by the state, a lot of our education laws are state laws. So AB 540 is another assembly bill, that now has become law that a lot of you are familiar with. It's what allows undocumented students to attend schools like Cañada College and pay in-state tuition. Schools offer students a lot more protection than the DMV does, right? So schools have a lot of protections and policies in place so that they cannot turn information over to ICE or the Department of Homeland Security. And a new president cannot just come in and take away AB 540. That, again, would have to go through the state legislature and the governor in order for a law like AB 540 to be changed. And local law enforcement is something else that generally states have power and authority over local law enforcement. And then on a very local level where police departments and sheriff departments will decide how much, if at all, they are willing to collaborate with ICE, with the federal immigration enforcement. So right now, both local police departments and the San Mateo County Sheriff's Department, they are not picking people up just based on someone's undocumented status. And they're not, if someone is reaching out to the police department for assistance, for help, because they've been victims of a crime, none of that information is being shared with immigration. So there's no need to fear that. However, if someone is picked up, arrested, and put in jail for a crime, the San Mateo County Sheriff's Department does collaborate with ICE in terms of giving them access to people in the county jail. So, word of advice, stay out of jail, because there is that collaboration. So that's state laws, federal laws. So what can a president do by himself, right? Does the president make the laws? No, Congress makes our laws, right? Congress passes the laws. The president can sign them into law, pass them, or veto them. That's the authority that the president has. And of course, our court system interprets the laws. So, the Supreme Court is, I think many of us were following the Supreme Court decision last spring when the Supreme Court decided to not allow DACA deferred action for parents of American citizens and expanded DACA to go forward. So the courts interpret the laws and can change laws through that interpretation. What the president can do is in the realm of executive actions, right? I think many of you know that DACA was an executive action by President Obama and his administration in 2012. Mr. Trump has said that he is going to end all of the president's executive actions. Will he go forward with that, and how will he go forward with that remains to be seen, but that's what he has publicly stated. So, and he does have the power to do that. We don't know what exactly that would look like. Will he say, okay, USCIS, the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Service that does the application process, they can no longer approve new DACA applications and new DACA renewals after January 20th. Is he going to wait until February? Is he going to wait until March? We don't know, right? Is he going to say everyone who has work authorization through DACA needs to send their work authorization cards back, their employment authorization documents back? We don't know. Is he going to, cancel that work authorization all at once? Or is he going to just let everyone's individual work authorization expire? We don't know. So it's at this point we're just waiting until we have more information available. And I'm going to talk a little bit more specifically about DACA. I do want to mention policies. So I think a lot of us have been listening in the news about who might be in his cabinet, who might be the new director of the Department of Homeland Security. Those are all political positions that a new president can, he can make a lot of changes in that regard, and then a lot of new policies can come out. Right now, there's a policy that governs who are the priorities for immigration enforcement. And those priorities are people who have criminal records and people who have serious immigration issues, particularly people who have an order of removal recently from January 1st, 2014 or more recent than that. So those are the current priorities for removal, for deportation. Is Trump going to keep that in place? Is he going to expand that? We don't know. He has indicated that people, kind of the criminals as he calls them, are going to continue to be his priority in terms of enforcement. So let's talk a little bit more specifically about DACA. If you have not yet applied for DACA and you're thinking, oh, maybe this would be a good time to do it, most advocates are not advising new initial DACA applications at this time. They're not likely, based on the timeline to get them approved, they're not likely to be approved in the remaining 2 months before Trump takes office, and the potential risks could outweigh the potential benefits. If you're considering this, should you get a legal consultation to figure out the best strategy in your particular case? Absolutely. Please do that. And my organization is providing free legal consultations around DACA for potential DACA beneficiaries for people who have DACA. I know that here in your brand new Dream Center, there's also an excellent attorney who is also providing legal consultations and assistance. So check out the Dream Center, get a legal consultation, get some good advice about your particular situation. Please do not go to a notario. Please do not go to an immigration consultant. Those individuals are not authorized to provide immigration advice. They don't have the training or the authorization to provide you with legal advice. So please seek out an authorized provider to get good legal advice, because otherwise you can get into a worse situation. If you have DACA right now and your DACA and your work authorization is set to expire in the next 6 months, it is likely to be advisable for you to renew your DACA as soon as possible. Absolutely advisable to get a good legal consultation as soon as possible to figure out what is the best strategy for you. And like as soon as possible, like if you can't do it this week, do it next week, because the sooner you get those renewal applications in, the more likely it is that it will be approved prior to January 20th. The timeline for processing that is just, it's an administrative process that happens within USCIS, and it had been taking many, many months. There was supposedly a glitch in the system that was delaying some of those. Some people who may have submitted back in January or February, maybe just getting their authorizations, their new work authorization now. And we've heard of cases recently where DACA renewals have been processed and approved within 4 weeks. So it's possible. The sooner you get it in, the more likely it will be to get it approved. What are the risks? The risks are exposing your information to USCIS. So if you have DACA and you've changed your address and USCIS still doesn't have your new address, if you submit for a renewal application, you'll be putting that new address on your application. Is that a huge risk? Well, that kind of depends on your situation, right? If you have a criminal history, it could be a little bit of a risk. If someone in your household has a criminal history, it could be a little bit of a risk for them. So get a good legal consultation. Anyone who submits a DACA application right now is risking losing the $465 that it costs, right? That's a lot of money. Because if it's not processed before January 20th and Trump decides to cancel it right away, you could lose that application fee. USCIS does not generally refund those application fees, right? So there is that risk. Most USCIS fees are going up. The government's going to start charging more money for most of the immigration applications starting on December 23rd. So the DACA application is going to go up to $495 on December 23rd. One more reason to get your application in as soon as possible if you are applying. And if you are applying, please get some legal assistance, because different people have different risk levels, and it's important to understand what your level of risk might be and what the safest way for you to apply might be. I want to talk a little bit about travel. If you have DACA and if you're interested in traveling outside the United States, you absolutely have to get advance permission. It's called advance parole. This is a travel document that allows you to leave the United States and return. It's a form that you have to fill out and get approved by immigration. Please do not leave the country without getting this form, or you will not be allowed back into the United States, okay? If you have already been granted advance parole and you have travel plans, please be sure to return to the United States well in advance of January 19th. You want to be back in the country before Trump can change anything. If you haven't yet applied for advance parole, the regular processing time tends to be about 3 to 4 months to get those approved, so it's unlikely that you get those approved. There is a cost to that. Not a whole lot of risk in applying, because if you're applying, it means you already have DACA, it means you're already in the system. Traveling outside the country always does carry certain risk. It also carries certain benefits, especially for people who may have an opportunity to adjust their status in the United States because maybe they are married to a U.S. citizen or have another family member who can help them with their papers. So again, get some good legal advice if you're thinking about doing that. Do not travel without advance parole permission, and please make sure you're back prior to January 19th. And now is a great time for everyone, whether you have DACA or you don't have DACA, you think you qualify or you think you don't qualify, come in and get a legal checkup. Come in and see if you might be eligible for anything. Come in to see if you might have a form of relief in case in case you are stopped by the immigration police, by ICE, so that you know what your options are. It's really good to know that in advance. It's good to know if you could fight it out in court. You want to make sure that you can preserve your opportunity to go before an immigration judge and see what you might be eligible for. As we've been doing DACA consultations over the last 4 years on a national level, we found that about 15% of people who came in asking about DACA were found to be eligible for something even better. So come get a consultation, see if you might be part of that 15%. What are some of those other forms of relief that people might be eligible for? There's a lot of different possibilities for people in a lot of different situations. I'm not going to talk too much about any of these right now, because each of these categories could be its own hour-long presentation. But I will just say, in general, what we've found people to be most likely to be eligible for are the U visa. And U visas are for individuals who have been victims of a violent crime. Could be domestic violence, could be a felonious assault, a robbery at gunpoint, someone who got stabbed, different kinds of violent crimes. If you cooperated with law enforcement, then you may be eligible for a U visa if you're undocumented. So if that might be your case or the case of someone you know, please ask them to get a consultation and see if that could be a form of relief that they might be eligible for. T visas are for victims of trafficking. Sometimes people think sometimes of just sex trafficking, but there's also work trafficking. Sometimes people are brought here by a coyote and they're forced to work without pay for a period of time. They're kept essentially in captivity, and they have to, work a certain number of hours or months or years to pay off this supposed debt to the coyote. So that can be considered trafficking. So if you know anyone in that kind of a situation, try to support them in getting a consultation to see if they might be eligible for a T visa. Special immigrant juvenile status is for minors who have been neglected or abandoned or abused by at least one parent. And unfortunately, we've been seeing a lot of young people in that situation as well. So those are some of the more common ones. Parole in place is actually for people who are in the military or close family member of someone in the military, and that can be another option that people aren't always necessarily aware of. So that's why we really emphasize coming in and getting an individual legal consultation, because even though you think your situation is just like your brother's or just like your classmates, your situation might be a little bit different and you might have some other options available. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about how we might be able to stay safe and what our rights are. Really want to emphasize avoiding negative contact with law enforcement. So DUIs are a really common way that people come into contact with law enforcement. Please try to avoid that. It's for someone who's undocumented. It's not just a traffic ticket and community service and paying the fine. It could mean deportation as well, and it could mean that your options in the future, in terms of immigration, are significantly affected. So please try to stay safe. Please try to avoid a run-in with the police. Everyone who lives in the United States has certain rights. We have basic rights under the Constitution, regardless of our immigration status. And you have the choice to exercise these rights or not if you're confronted by the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Police, ICE, or any other law enforcement when you're at home, on the street, or anywhere else. you have the right to remain silent. You have the right to speak to an attorney. You have the right to not sign any documents before you speak with an attorney. If you're in your own home, that's where you have the most rights. You have the right to keep your door closed unless ICE or the police have a warrant, a document signed by a judge with your specific address, your specific apartment number if you live in an apartment building, and the name, and your name or the name of someone who currently lives at your home, okay? If they don't have that signed warrant, signed by a judge, you do not have to open your door. Ask them to slip it under your door, ask them to show it to you in a window. You do not have to open your door to them if they do not have a warrant. That's your biggest protection. And we don't, I have to really emphasize that we do not expect there to be widespread immigration raids on January 20th. We do not anticipate that that would be his plan. That's not a reasonable plan. However, we want to be prepared. We do think that he may be targeting these specific individuals that I mentioned earlier, people who have a criminal history, people who have an outstanding order of deportation, especially if it was an order that was put in effect in 2014 or more recently. So if there's someone in those circumstances in your household, you should definitely have a safety plan in place. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. Okay? I do want to mention, it's important to know, so generally we say don't sign anything before talking to an attorney. And the reason why we say that is that they will often tell you that you need to sign your own voluntary departure order. And that's not true. But they say that, and I guess, you know, they get away with saying that, and a lot of people basically sign their own removal from the United States. So you don't have to sign that document. If you don't sign that document, you may get placed in detention, right? Which is why we warn people, don't open your door if you don't have to. That's your best protection. However, if you're driving your car and you're stopped by the police for speeding, for a stop sign, for a taillight, they will give you a ticket. They will ask you to sign the ticket saying that you're going to either pay the ticket or fight it in court. If you don't sign that ticket when you're driving, then they may arrest you and put you in jail, or you could get picked up by ICE. So that's the one time when you should sign something. If you're driving your car and you're stopped by the police and you're given a ticket, it's generally in your interest to sign that and pay it right away. If you don't pay your tickets, even if they're tickets for something super minor like a stop sign, if you get a bunch of tickets and don't pay them, you can get a warrant out for your arrest. So just back to that basic warning to avoid that negative contact with the police. So other warnings: don't run. If you see immigration police and you start to run and they see you running, automatically you're suspicious, and then they have cause to stop and question you. So don't run. You can turn around and walk the other way, but don't run. Don't lie. If you don't want to give them your information, exercise your right to remain silent, but don't lie, because it'll always come back and get you. And don't show them false documents. They're the ones who issue these documents. They know what they look like. It's just better to exercise your rights to remain silent, to not give them your information, and don't give them false information. And I brought some of these red cards with us today, and these are a little reminder of some of these rights that we've been talking about. It's on one side is in Spanish, and it's a reminder that you don't have to open your door, you don't have to answer any questions before talking to an attorney, and you don't have to sign any documents before talking to an attorney. And on the other side, it explains in English that you're exercising your right to remain silent, you're exercising your rights based on the 5th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution and the 4th Amendment of the Constitution, and you're not granting them permission to enter your home or to search your belongings. So it's not a magical card, it's not a get out of jail free card, it's a reminder of what your rights are. There's a telephone number that you can call for assistance if you need it. And they're made by one of our partner organizations, and they're specifically made in red. Just like in soccer games, when a player violates the rights of another player and the ref gives them the red card. So we say, give a red card to ICE. Don't let them violate your rights. Tell them that you want to exercise your rights, your right to remain silent, your right to protect yourself. So a safety plan. We, even though we do not expect widespread immigration raids. We do not believe that it's necessary to panic, but we do advise having a safety plan. And just like we advise having a safety plan in case of an earthquake, we live in an earthquake zone. There's going to be an earthquake eventually. We all should have a plan for what we're going to do in case of an earthquake. If you live in a household with someone who is undocumented or you are undocumented yourself, it is wise to have a safety plan, an emergency plan in place, and to know what you're going to do. Because once it happens, it's too late, right? Once the earthquake happens, you don't have time to get those 3 days of water stored up, right? You have to do that in advance, right? The same with immigration. Once immigration is at your door, once they come into your home, once they pick you up on the street, it's too late to make a plan. So we don't think that that's going to happen right away. And we do not necessarily think he's going to be targeting students, right? The student population is the best base of the immigrant community. And you have an entire community of people here in Oakland City, here in San Mateo County, who have your backs, who are willing to stand up, be at your side, and say, no, this cannot happen in our community. So we do not see cause for panic, but we do advocate having a safety plan. If you have children, have a plan for who is going to take care of your children if something should happen to you. This is good if you're a U.S. citizen or if you're undocumented. But if you're undocumented, it's even more important, right? So when we send our kids to school, at the beginning of the school year, the schools give us who's going to pick your kids up from school. If you don't have someone written down there, and you're not available to pick your kid up or to send your kid home to, the school is obligated to call CPS. So let's not put them in that situation, right? Let's put down family members or friends or neighbors who can take care of our kids. Make sure that that person knows that that's what you're asking them to do and where your kids go to school. And if your kids are old enough, make sure your kids know, Aunt Susie's going to pick you up from school if I'm not able to, for whatever reason, because I have to work late or the bus is late or whatever. Make sure your kids know that too. Memorize your phone numbers. The first thing they're going to do is take away your cell phone. So you have the right to make a phone call, but you're going to have to know the phone number to call. So make sure you have a trusted friend or family member. If you have an attorney, if you've already been seeing someone for immigration issues, memorize that phone number. And if you have an advocate, someone who you know is going to fight for you, memorize that number as well. And then if you have something in process, if you have DACA, if you've applied for a U visa, if you have a family-based petition that your mom put in for you, 10 years ago, all of those kinds of things, make sure you know where those documents are, have them in a safe place. Whoever is going to be your designated advocate, make sure they know where that is too. We put money for bonds. If someone is in detention, in order to bond out, it's generally at least $1,500, could be as much as $10,000. So having a plan about how you're going to raise that money would be good information as well. And talk about it. Talk about it with your friends and family, and so that you can create a plan together. And that's contact information for my organization. we are providing free consultations right now for DACA. You come in, say you want a consultation about DACA and other forms of relief, that will be free. We're providing free assistance, free legal assistance to help people with DACA renewal applications right now. So feel free to call us. Call us if you have DACA and you're just worried about what you should do next. Come in for a consultation. We'll help you figure that out. If you already have your green card and you've thought about applying for citizenship, now would be a really good time to do it. U.S. citizens have a lot more rights and benefits and protections than people with green cards. Talk to us about that as well. Or if you have questions about any of those other possible forms of relief, or if you're not even sure what your questions are, but you've never had a legal consultation, now's a really good time to come in and get that. And you don't have to come in to us. We have partner organizations in the community. If you live in East Palo Alto, there's an outstanding organization, Community Legal Services in East Palo Alto. They'll provide you with excellent assistance there. They're also doing free DACA renewal applications. If you live in San Mateo, there's Catholic Charities in San Mateo that can provide you with assistance. And right here on your campus, you have the Dream Center. So take advantage of these resources. They're here for you.